If I understand your testimony correctly, the Russians are in violation of this treaty. My question is, are the Russians in violation of any other arms control treaties besides the INF? Either one.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do consider the Russians to be in violation of the Conventional Forces in Europe Treaty.
Is it correct to say that the Russians are in violation or not complying with 8 other arms control treaties besides this one?
Sir, in some cases, we are working on compliance issues with them. In the case of the Open Skies Treaty, for example, we have had some concerns about their compliance with the Open Skies Treaty, but we are working and in some cases successfully working to resolve some of our concerns. In other cases, such as the Biological Weapons Convention, we have been unable to determine whether current activities that they have going on would not be in compliance with the treaty. And in some cases—
Excuse me, let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Are they in violation or not in compliance with 8 other arms control treaties?
Sir, I believe that is not quite correct, because some we consider, we have determined that they are in violation, actually in violation of the treaty, and in some cases there are some issues that we are working with them on to determine their compliance.
Does not being in compliance mean the same as violation?
Well, I'll just give you an example, sir. We have for each of the treaties and agreements an implementation body for that treaty or agreement. In the case of the New START Treaty, it's called the Bilateral Consultative Commission. We may have a difference with the Russians, but we try to sit down and work out that difference. In the latest session of the BCC, we were able to work out some differences with the Russians about their inspection approaches. So it takes some time and it takes some work to figure out whether they are actually in violation of a treaty.
So does violation and noncompliance mean different things? That's really my question.
Violation and noncompliance mean the same thing. I was just making the point that in each of these treaties and agreements, if we went through them one by one, I could tell you, in some cases we're working on issues.
I'm sorry, I want to get this straight. Noncompliance and violation do mean the same thing.
Correct, sir.
So, are the Russians in violation and are not in compliance with 8 other treaties?
Sir, they are not in compliance or in violation with the INF Treaty and the CFE Treaty. In certain other cases, we have concerns that we're working with them on.
So, is it yes or no for us 8 treaties?
I do not believe the number is 8, sir. It is no for 8 treaties.
If the Russians are in violation of the INF Treaty, and you have testified that they are in violation, the United States has options. One of those options is to withdraw from the INF Treaty. Is that correct?
That is correct. And in fact, the United States has a right to withdraw in any event. It is one of the articles of the treaty. We always put that in for national security purposes. A country may choose to withdraw from a treaty.
And what is the United States position on, what is our position today on withdrawing from the INF Treaty? We know they're in violation. Are we going to withdraw from the treaty?
Our view is that it is in the national security interest of the United States and of our allies and partners to remain in the INF Treaty and to work to bring Russia back into full compliance with the treaty.
How long are we going to give the Russians to come back to the fold, so to speak? A month, a year, 10 years? When are we going to make the decision, you've had enough time to come into compliance after you are in clear violation? This is the day of reckoning. How long are we going to give them to come into compliance?
Sir, I can't tell you exactly. We have a diplomatic effort going on. I can give you 2 historical examples. In the case of the ABM Treaty, the Reagan administration and the Bush administration worked with the Soviets diplomatically for 5 years before they were able to bring the Russians back into compliance with that treaty. In the case of the CFE Treaty, the Bush administration, George W. Bush administration, and the Obama administration also worked for 5 years. In that case, we did not bring the Russians back into compliance with the treaty. We declared countermeasures, and basically we have now put in place countermeasures against the Russians with regard to the CFE treaty.
Two more questions. It's my understanding that we first detected Russian violations of the INF Treaty in 2008. If I do my math correctly, that's 6 years. I'm no expert in arms, but I would think the Russians would lather up with the idea that they are in violation, continue to be in violation, and we're just going to keep postponing a decision to withdraw from the treaty. What other options do we have besides withdrawing from the treaty?
Sir, if I may, I just wanted to say that in 2008, we did not actually know that the Russians are or were in violation of the INF Treaty. It took some time to determine that fact. This is an issue.
But others of us believed it to be in 2008. Without arguing over the time frame, what other options do we have besides withdrawing from the treaty?
I'll just say that we'll be happy to talk about that matter in closed session. So, but we have a number of options. I pointed to them already. One has been to, declare countermeasures. That's something we did in the case of the CFE treaty. We also, I will say, right at the moment, have a kind of three-pronged approach in place for dealing with this matter. We are continuing to pursue it diplomatically. We have economic countermeasures that we are looking at, and we are also, and my colleague Brian McEwen can talk in more detail about this, we are looking at military measures that we may wish to take. So we are, in fact, pursuing our own national policy in this regard, and if you're talking about in the realm of legal and treaty work, then we have other options such as countermeasures that can be pursued.
Is Russia deploying or preparing to deploy tactical nuclear weapons in Crimea?
Sir, I don't know, but we are very, very alert to statements that have been made by certain experts on the Russian side about deploying capable aircraft, dual capable aircraft, such as the backfire and missile systems that would also be dual capable. And we have spoken to the Russians about this and expressed our concern about any option of reintroducing nuclear weapons into Crimea.
The Chair will recognize the gentleman from Tennessee, the ranking member, Mr. Cooper.